Hello, and let's talk about the Modi government's plan for an all-India mega database called the National Social Registry. Over the past few days, a series of reports have been published in Huffington Post India and other media outlets across the country about the government's plan to set up an auto-updating database of all citizens, which can track every detail of our lives. Obviously, Aadhaar plays a key role in this, and what is most worrying is that this database could very negatively affect the privacy of citizens, and its setting up will lead to the bypassing of existing laws and even Supreme Court judgments on the issue. We will discuss this fact in detail, but here are some details about the project. The National Social Registry will be, to quote the first in the series of articles, an all-encompassing, auto-updating, searchable database to track every aspect of the lives of each of India's over 1.2 billion residents. It was first proposed in 2015 and is likely to be operational by next year. It involves updating the data gathered as part of the socio-economic caste census conducted in 2011 and will use Aadhaar data to maintain a registry of religion, caste, income, property, education, marital status, employment, disability and family tree data. As part of this, the Aadhaar Act may be modified to remove some of the privacy restrictions in it. The claim has been that this is to improve the targeting for subsidies and welfare schemes, but it involves the tracking of every citizen in the country, not just potential beneficiaries. Incidentally, Manoranjan Kumar, who is economic advisor to the Ministry of Rural Development, proposed this project, himself has developed reservations about it, citing the lack of adequate safeguards. He worries that the implementation of this project could speed up India's turn to becoming a police state, according to the articles. These reports were written by Kumar Sambhav Shrivastava based on RTI responses obtained by him and data governance researcher Srinivas Kodali. We spoke to Kumar on this project and its implications for the people. Here is what he had to say. Kumar, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So, to start with, there are a lot of technical terms here. There is the National Social Registry, the question of Aadhaar, databases. So, a key point that I want to start off with is the question of how such databases are built. And one key aspect you mentioned in your article, which we refer to, is that it's auto-updating. So, in practical terms, how does auto-updating work? Because we know that there's a lot of data being collected, various databases are being maintained by state governments, by the central government. But when we talk about a master database, which is auto-updated, the auto-updated seems to be a much more recent or unique feature. So how exactly does that work?
See, the Aadhaar is the key here when you talk about auto-updating, because from every birth registration to subsidies to any transaction that you do today, you need registration through Aadhaar. Right. And in all the databases, your Aadhaar number is seeded. So the auto-updation would happen that the next time you go and do a transaction with the government, your updated information is recorded in one particular database in one particular department. Right. Now from there, the new updated information is seamlessly integrated into all the other databases, which means the moment you do a transaction, that new information gets added in all the other databases. Right. And if you have a centralized database which is collecting all this information, that will automatically get updated with each transaction that you're doing with the government. So here, for all databases where your information is there, you need to identify that, okay, this record belongs to this person, and for that identification, unique identification, your Aadhaar is the key. Right. And if you have seeded all databases together, linking this with Aadhaar, that's how the automation basically works, the automated updation works.
Right. So what we're looking at is that maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, we have the possibility of, say, every single bit of information about you accessible to any official who has the authority or access to actually check that.
That's the idea, and that's the ambition of the bureaucracy. And initially, and that's why I think the whole idea of Aadhaar actually came about, that you can identify each individual very uniquely, so that wherever their information is recorded, you can just link, okay, this belongs to this person, and let's bring it together. Right. So eventually, yes.
And Telangana already has an example of this.
Telangana already has an example, but to add to that, I mean, that's another level of technology that they have evolved. What they are now saying is that they are not using Aadhaar. Their technology is much advanced, that without Aadhaar, they are doing unique identification of each individual living in the state, which is basically, if you do next level of data computation and deduplication of each person through, say, whatever data is available about, say, your name, your parents' name, your address, then eventually the triangulation capacity, if you have for large number of people, for example, in Telangana, there are 3 crore people, and for that kind of database, if you can do that kind of triangulation without using a unique ID, every time mix and match, permutation and combination, and eventually you can still identify by a unit, say, name and address of a person. So that's what they have done, and that through that name and address of each person from all state government databases, they have brought it together and aggregated at one place.
So in your articles, you explore the origin of this registry. So first of all, there's a socio-economic caste census, which at that point, and is still a very landmark move because it was after almost so many decades that something like this was being done. And from there, we have a shift where it is there was this whole discourse which still continues about targeted delivery of government schemes. And now we've ended up in a place where the government has access to your entire life's story, so to speak. And in parallel, we also know that there are other surveillance mechanisms that are going on. So the key argument, of course, here is that, which people continue to make today, is that this is all for efficient delivery of schemes. So how would you counter that?
See, it's very interesting, like how you brought it, the mutation of socio-economic caste census and identifying poor for delivery of services to actually profiling each individual in the entire country of the entire population is quite a huge, remarkable journey that this socio-economic caste census has had in the last decade. So initially the targeting of subsidies was used to be done by the below poverty line census. That was in 90s. They would do, in rural India, they would do below BPL census. And that got mired into legal controversies within the Supreme Court. And then they were like, okay, let's do a different kind of socio-economic caste census. And they included caste data also in this because they wanted to know just SC, not just beyond SC, ST, also other caste, which could, what is their economic profile and how then policies could emerge accordingly. So they did this whole exercise of socio-economic caste census, but it remained controversial all these years because the caste data was not disclosed. And they said that, oh, it was jumbled up, it wasn't disclosed, but it was kept in the custody of the Home Ministry. Probably it was too sensitive to disclose, or it has political mileage. Whoever has access to it would get more benefits in elections, whatever. So that part remains controversial. Another aspect of socio-economic caste census is that it was not conducted under the Census Act of 1948, which basically mandates that all those who are counted under the census, their privacy and their remains confidential. So under the Census Act, from this national population census, you can use the aggregated data for larger policy, demographic, etc., policy discourse, but you can't identify or share information of individuals or families. But those restrictions do not apply to the socio-economic caste census. So they said that it's a study in terms of legal language, the government said that. So it was not done under any law. But you still have information, granular information of each family, each individual, of all households in the country. So it's not a survey, it's a census. And when you have this kind of huge amount of data for the country, and now it remained on, say, hard copies, your static registers. Now you digitized it, but it still remains static because it's now about almost a 10-year-old data. What power it may have if you have updated data of this all time at one place. That's what social registry does. And it not only does that, it builds on it all the other databases information and aggregates from other schemes how much subsidy your family is going. Now imagine if, say it's leaked. I'm not saying intention is that, but say a political party or a political consultancy has it. And then in elections, they know that, okay, this family gets this much subsidy on these many schemes. And then they micro-target those with ad campaigns and also all that plus religion, plus caste information if they are putting it here. All that is available on a click of mouse for them. So this is what the mutation from targeting poor to then profiling the entire population has happened. And you rightly pointed out that targeting for subsidies, that has been always the reason or the argument that has been given behind these high-tech solutions. But we don't have mechanism like in other countries, European countries or say the US, for protecting privacy of people. So that remains when you're using these kind of high-tech solutions and don't have a strong privacy regime. It's always prone to misuse. Yeah.
Which is what Manoranjan Kumar
has said.
The diplomat, the bureaucrat who was involved in actually the originator of this idea himself has said.
Right, exactly. Even when I was reporting and these questions would come up that maybe it's good for delivery of projects, maybe that's how the governance has to work. But when you hear from the horse's mouth who has developed it, and whose idea was it, and he realized in the process that, okay, our systems are not capable of handling this kind of information at one place, and our machinery of government, bureaucrats, police and all that, you don't have control about their integrity and how it could be used. So he himself became quite apprehensive about it. So that just tells us that whether our systems are prepared for this kind of system or not.
And one of the most disturbing aspects of the investigation is also the point about how there are amendments planned to the Aadhaar Act.
Exactly.
Which could actually basically completely dilute the Supreme Court's verdict. So could you talk a bit about that?
That's brazen. I mean, the Supreme Court verdict is seen as a hindrance in what the government wants to do. And they say, okay, so this has put a spanner in our works, so let's find ways how to bypass it. And they're doing it pretty brazenly. So the one amendment has already come, which allows basically for government to access all the information and then also pass it on to private players, which was again stopped by the judgment. But this, the discussions that we found in this investigation that are happening within the government, they are not just bypassing the Supreme Court order, they are actually diluting the original Aadhaar Act, which was before the Supreme Court judgment. So whatever privacy regime you already have in the Aadhaar order, which Supreme Court said is not enough, they are even diluting those clauses in the Aadhaar regulations. So the amendments that I'm talking about, or in the article mentions, is in the original rules of Aadhaar, where they say that, okay, for each time you have to access the information linked with the Aadhaar card of a person, you have to take consent of that person. Now they are saying, okay, once you have taken the consent, you can use it for whatever purpose.
One agency takes it, everybody else.
Everybody can use it. There is other clause in the laws which says that when an authentication agency that is doing the authentication, during the transaction they take your biometrics or the information that is accessed from the Aadhaar database, they get it there, they have to store it, but they can't use it for any purpose. Except when the person who requires it asks for it. Now they are saying even that clause is going to be amended. So if the amendment, we don't know what the amendment would be, but if the amendment is here, and you remove these restrictions, which means even your biometrics could be shared by these authentications agencies who are storing it during the authentication.
Exactly. And finally, I mean, it may be a bit too early to discuss this, I may be a bit unclear, but we are already having a huge discussion over citizenship. So how is the possibility of this kind of data being used in this area? What are the possibilities of that?
See, like Manoranjan Kumar said it, if somebody decides to misuse it, there is no limit to it, because there are no enough protections. There is no protective regime around it. So if you have this data at one place and somebody gets access and decides to use it for different ways, you can just amend the clauses, amend the law and say, okay, we have it at one. I mean, data never dies. It can transform in different ways and it can be used for different ways. So, okay, you have this, then you have, you can say, okay, I want to use it for target delivery. You want to use it for police surveillance. You want to use it for NRC. You have it and you use it. So nothing is stopping unless there is a law which clearly says that, okay, this will only be used for this and can't be used for this, which was the case in Aadhaar, and now they are changing it. So, I mean, you never know that where it stops.
And according to some of the legal experts you've talked to, is there a possibility of a legal challenge being mounted
Yeah, I mean, I've spoke to a lot of lawyers who have read the Aadhaar judgment, who have read the privacy judgment. And one aspect that all of them point out very clearly 2-3 times is that uh, in the Indian law, I mean, the law agencies are allowed to do surveillance, but targeted surveillance of people. Uh, it doesn't allow mass surveillance.
Right.
That, okay, if you want to prevent crime, you can't say that, okay, in Delhi, each household will be surveilled, because that's infringement of privacy. Now, what Supreme Court in the Aadhaar judgment as well as the privacy judgment said, that any action that of a state that infringes on the privacy of people should pass three tests, three major tests. There were other criteria also, more than three, but it said that it should be three. There should always be these three major tests that should pass. One, it should have a legal purpose.
Right.
It should be done under the legal regime. So there should be a law which mandates it. Second, the infringement, that the action that is infringing on privacy should be proportional to the purpose that it wants to solve. And third, there was
the proportionality.
I think these two things, and it should have a legit purpose also.
Right.
The third was that it should have a legit purpose, state purpose. Now, okay, you could always say that I have a legit purpose, that I want to do targeted delivery of services to people, or I want to maintain law and order. But is it under a law? The social registry scheme, there is no law in public domain yet. Government has not come up that it is under a law. Second, whether it's proportionate.
Exactly.
Can you say that you can actually track and profile 1.3 billion people of the country to target poor for subsidy?
Exactly. Right.
So that proportionality test is also there. So yeah, people are saying that it would not pass, and it could be challenged in the court. Yeah.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you so much, Prashant.
Now, next story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the country yesterday to a mixed response, so to speak. The speech was largely advisory in nature, with lists of do's and don'ts for people to follow. So we had the Janta curfew on Sunday when you're not supposed to go out. For 5 minutes at 5 p.m., we're supposed to celebrate those who are in the front lines of fighting against this disease. But there was some criticism for the absence or the lack of any concrete proposals, especially to handle the socio-economic crisis that the pandemic will bring. Just before that, the Kerala government announced a 20,000 crore package specifically to deal with many of these issues. To talk more about this, we spoke to Subin Dennis of the Tricontinental Institute of Social Research on both this package as well as Kerala's response to the epidemic. Here is what he had to say. Thank you so much, Subin, for joining us. So, yesterday, around the same time that the Prime Minister made his speech to the country, the Chief Minister of Kerala also announced a special package for the coronavirus. So, could you talk a bit about the key aspects of the package and the relevance in the context today?
Yes, Prashant. The Kerala Chief Minister addressed the media yesterday at 7 o'clock in the evening. The Prime Minister addressed the nation at 8 o'clock. And the difference in their approaches could not have been starker. If you look at the package that has been announced by the Kerala government, the Chief Minister has announced a package worth 20,000 crore rupees. So the salient features of the package includes food grains for all families in the state without APL and BPL distinction for a month. The Kerala government had already announced that it will set up restaurants all across the state, about 1,000 restaurants all across the state by the month of September. And these restaurants were supposed to provide subsidized food at the rate of 25 rupees.
Right.
These were supposed to be set up by the month of September, but these will be expedited by now, and all of those will be set up by the month of April. And the rate for the meals has been reduced to 20 rupees. There is also a health package worth 500 crore rupees. Kerala provides pensions for about 50 lakh people. All of those people will be receiving their pensions for the month of April in the month of March itself. Allocation for rural employment guarantee for the months of April and May, 1,000 crore rupees each for each month. Loans will be provided to families through Kudumbashree. Kudumbashree is a massive collective of 4.4 million women in the state. Apart from these, recognizing the fact that a lot of sectors have been hard hit by the virus outbreak. Relaxations have been provided to in tax payment to various sectors like auto rickshaws and taxis and buses and so on. Also, entertainment tax has been waived for movie theaters. In any case, movie theaters are closed for this month. So these are the main features of the package that the Chief Minister has announced yesterday. So it takes a holistic approach of considering the fact that livelihoods have to be protected.
So the key focus seems to be on the one hand that there's a focus on making sure that people have more cash in hand as quickly as possible to weather the worst of the crisis. And on the other hand, also ensuring that, say, certain payments that have to be made are also eased. I think the electricity and water bills have also, there's been some delay given for them.
Yes, correct.
And to take a larger picture here, could you talk a bit about also the strategy of the government specifically with response to combating the disease, not only of the government but also of people in general?
Well, the preparations of the Kerala government to combat the virus outbreak started very early, by the end of January. As soon as it became apparent that the virus outbreak in China is going to be massive and its impact will be felt across the world. And the health minister herself said that the government was aware that there are students from Kerala in Wuhan itself. And if some of them come back, so we'll be, the virus can spread to Kerala as well. So as soon as some of them reached Kerala, they were tracked down, they were identified and isolated. They were kept in proper quarantine facilities, and they were treated. And the 3 people who were confirmed positive for coronavirus at that time, all of them recovered. And it seemed by the first week of the first week of February that Kerala had already weathered the crisis. But then once the virus spread to other countries, especially the European countries, and the influx of people from there intensified into India and also naturally to Kerala. And so that was a second round. So Kerala had to, put a renewed focus on identifying those people, isolating people who had symptoms and quarantining them, and treating them if they have the virus, testing properly. I mean, Kerala set up many testing facilities. Initially, Kerala had to send samples to the National Institute of Virology in Pune. Now it has many centers. Initially, a unit of the National Institute of Virology in Alleppey was set up. Later, the testing centers were set up in several medical colleges in Trivandrum, Kozhikode, and Thrissur. And now testing centers have been further extended to several other centers, which were also announced yesterday. So that is one part of the process, that is contact tracing and so on. And naturally, when people come in, there will be other people who will come into contact with those people. And all of them will also have to be tracked down, traced, and kept in observation at least. So right now there are about 31,000 people under observation in various parts of the state. Most of them are in home isolation. Just about 237 people are in hospitals under surveillance. About 25 people have been confirmed positive, apart from the 3 who already recovered. But there are many more people who are under observation. Most of them hopefully will not test positive for coronavirus. But the state is not taking any chances with regard to that. So this is one, and perhaps by now it is already well known that Kerala has used some innovative methods for contact tracing by publishing the route map of of people who were confirmed positive. So by publishing that through the social media, through various other media outlets and so on. And so people are made aware that in which places where people who were confirmed for coronavirus, which places were they present at various points of time, and everybody who was present at those places during those points of time will have to contact the health department, and they will also be kept under surveillance. That's why we get this very high number of 31,000. So that is one part of it. Contact tracing and isolation and quarantine. So that is one part of the response. The second aspect of the response is to take into account the impact that the virus outbreak will have on livelihoods. So for considering that, the Kerala government has been announcing various measures right from the beginning. For example, since the Anganwadis and so on will be closed, so the food for the Anganwadi children, that the food will be delivered at their homes.
Right.
Similarly, whoever among the people who have been quarantined at their homes, whoever among them needs to be given food will be delivered at their homes. And the extent of the planning of the Kerala government was seen even in the approach to internet, because many people, as more and more people start working from home, you will need to increase the capacity for increase bandwidth and connectivity and so on. So subsequently, the Kerala Chief Minister held a meeting with the telecom companies, and the telecom companies agreed to increase network capacity by 30 to 40%. So these things were there. And yesterday's economic package is in continuation with this approach of mitigating the adverse effects of the virus outbreak on people's livelihoods.
Right.
And there is a third aspect to it. Details of it are still to emerge, because while we consider the effects of the virus outbreak on the people, on livelihoods and so on, it is also important to ensure the supply of essential goods, particularly food and medicine.
Right.
And specifically in the case of the coronavirus outbreak itself, so two things become very important: masks and hand sanitizers. So instead of letting the market take charge of it, the government has taken a proactive approach in manufacturing both masks and hand sanitizers. So one public sector company called Kerala State Drugs and Pharmaceuticals Limited, so they are manufacturing hand sanitizers. And if you look at the participation of people, so various sections of people, various not-for-profit organizations, various mass and class organizations, so they also have been proactive in this. For example, the Kudumbashree itself has been manufacturing masks. The Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad has been manufacturing
It's a popular science organization. Yes.
Yes, it is India's largest popular science organization with about 40,000 members. So they also have been involved in this.
Right.
And of course, there are other things like awareness campaigns and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting aspect, because there's also been, I think, a lot of focus on this being as much a community initiative as the government initiative. The Break the Chain campaign, for instance, there's been a lot of buzz on the internet, interesting memes, videos, and also on the ground, I think, like you said, a lot of smaller organizations coming together to set up maybe stands where sanitizers are easily available and stuff like that.
Indeed, the Break the Chain campaign has been taken up by the entire society. I mean, large sections of society. Even many film stars have posted videos urging people to join the campaign. Many organizations have set up kiosks with hand sanitizers or facilities to wash their hands and so on in various places. Can be in bus stops, can be in bus terminals, railway stations, or other public places. And all establishments have been urged to put up or set up hand washing facilities or kiosks with hand sanitizers and so on at their entrance. Right. So in many places they are checking the temperature and so on. So all of these are important. And if you look at awareness campaigns, perhaps there is one thing that has been missed in the recent weeks. It's an awareness campaign that the Kerala government had already done in the first few weeks of the outbreak, that is early February. So it is the fact that the Kerala Health Department produced many videos to create awareness among people. And these videos were screened in the schools, in the public schools of Kerala, and that reached about 4 million children.
Right.
For 4 million students. And these were screened using the projectors that are available in the schools now. So that is another aspect. That Kerala's investment in public education and public healthcare. So these have, the usefulness of these have become very, very apparent at this moment. Right. Because even the schools, the public, about 45,000 classrooms in Kerala have been turned smart. That is, they have laptops and projectors and overhead projectors and so on. So these videos were screened for students using these facilities. Right. So it is an approach that combines the efforts of the Kerala government, various organizations, and the people at large.
Right. Thank you so much, Subin, for speaking to us. That's all we have for in this episode of Let's Talk. We'll be back on Monday with the latest news developments of the day. Until then, keep watching NewsClick.